Tasty it.
Should have brought her cheerleader.
You know, we down
Over here on the right.
just need people with their faces and that's what this is for. And
That's standard operating.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
At least.
Better them than me that I got. I hope she pays it.
that gives too much attitude.
He had one line.
I understand. You're for substance. Over show.
We're just going to skip it.
We'll visit. Well, that's
Hey, man.
we all want the same thing. Better Houston.
I don't know why they care about It ain't gonna matter.
Everyone, please come on in. Find a seat. We're going to start here in a minute.
That'll be a penalty. They ought to take it out of your next.
Very good. Well, good evening, Houston, and welcome Central Houston members, board members, partners, and friends. My name is Chris Larson, and I have the privilege and honor of serving as the president and CEO of Central Houston. I think I'm going to brag about an applause for my name being led by a congresswoman at some point in my career. I would also like to extend an official welcome to any other elected officials who are with us this evening. A round of applause for all of our elected officials who dedicate their time and service to our community. Central Houston is hosting this forum because the mayor's office plays an immensely important and instrumental role in shaping our city's future. Each and every day, our team works hand in hand with the city on tasks that range from the mundane to mission critical. So it's fair to say that we are very interested to know how the leading candidates view downtown. And no matter which candidate wins the election, we remain committed to doing what we always do, which is working our butts off as great partners to the city. Indeed, such partnerships between the public and private sectors are critical to achieving our shared mission to champion and enhance downtown as a connected and thriving place for everyone. Tonight, we serve as an unbiased convener. And as a reminder, Central Houston neither endorses candidates nor makes campaign contributions. But we do appreciate and thank the candidates who come before us to share their philosophies and priorities about leading Houston, especially downtown. Because as goes downtown, so goes Houston. Now, I have the honor of introducing Dean Michael F. Berry of South Texas College of Law and invite you all in sharing a round of applause for his institution in opening their venue for us tonight.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening. My name is Mike Berry. I have the honor of being the president and dean here at South Texas, and I welcome you to South Texas College of Law, Houston. If you look at this banner that is behind the candidates, you will see that we have been private and independent since 1923. In fact, it was 99 years, 10 months, and 28 days ago that the first group of students, about 30 of them, 5 of whom were women, started at the downtown YMCA in the first classes of the South Texas College of Law. Over this last 100 years, South Texas has been a part of downtown Houston's history, and Houston is an integral part of our school as well. We are a mission-driven school, a school with a foundation on diversity, opportunity, excellence, and service. And we serve here in downtown. We live here in downtown. We draw here to downtown. And most of our graduates Once they have tasted downtown, stay here in Houston as well. So we are absolutely critically interested in the future of where Houston will go and are proud to be able to host this forum tonight. Thank you for joining us here on our campus. We will welcome you back as frequently as you can visit us. Have a great evening.
Finally, I have the honor of introducing the CEO of Walter P. Moore and the chair of Central Houston Board of Directors, Dilip Chowdhury. Dilip?
Thank you, Chris. Welcome, fellow board members, Central Houston members, and others in attendance today. 40 years ago, the oil and gas capital of the world, Houston, was rocked by the collapse of oil prices. Overnight, downtown went from boom town to ghost town. To meet this unprecedented challenge, business leaders came together to form Central Houston. Since then, Central Houston has been a stabilizing and a steward of our city. The organization works to create a full and common vision of a more resilient and thriving economy. We work together to steer a more inclusive and elevated pathway for downtown and our region. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to lead this organization. I would also like to recognize my fellow board chairs, representing two robust engines that are also dedicated to downtown's vitality, just like Central Houston is. Ms. Leslie Ashby, Chair of the Downtown Management District. Leslie is also partner at the law firm of Ashby LLP. And Mr. Curtis Flowers, Chair of the Downtown Redevelopment Authority. And Curtis is also the Executive Director of JP Morgan's Corporate Finance and Investment Banking Group, where he heads up Houston Public Finance. Thank you both for your leadership. Next, I would like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Ms. Lisa Gray, Opinion Editor for the Houston Chronicle. As Houston Chronicle's op-ed editor, Lisa Gray is a member of the editorial board. Previously, she held many of Chronicle's most interesting jobs: senior editor, digital, features, enterprise editor, founding editor, Gray Matters. She's also a podcaster, launching and leading a team of CityCast Houston. She's a writer, columnist, and a managing editor for Houston Press. She was an editor for Site Magazine for the Rice Design Alliance, and the editor of the Rice Thresher before graduating Rice University. You can hear her on KUHF Radio talking about Houston Pet Peeves, a monthly feature on Houston Matters program. And while she bemoans everything from grackles and hot summers and why trains seem to be parked so long on the East End, one thing is obvious: Lisa loves the city. After decades of studying it closely, thinking deeply, and writing about it, she still says, "Houston's my city. Sometime I'll figure it out." So Lisa, thank you for joining us tonight and agreeing to moderate the forum. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. So, welcome everybody. Tonight, we are holding a forum. It's a bit different than a debate. It's about airing ideas. The candidates will talk about what they want, their visions. They will not be addressing each other directly. They won't be, as you would in a debate, there won't be counters. There won't be any questions from the audience while we're going. This isn't a town hall either. But it's not purely loose and free-flowing. We do have some ground rules. So the order in which you see the candidates sitting before you was chosen at random. They drew straws right before we walked in. The questions that we're going to be answering tonight came from Central Houston members. Each of the candidates was given a list of 12 questions, and they chose 5 that they want to answer. In addition to those questions, if there's any time, I will ask some of the other questions from that list. And if we do manage to do that, every candidate will be given a chance to respond to that question. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer a question. Yes, we are keeping track of the time. We can see a screen up here. In addition, there are a couple of guys over there with paddles that they'll hold up to give us a warning when we're getting close, and there's a red paddle for when it's time to stop. Every candidate is going to get 1 minute to make opening remarks and 1 minute for a closing statement. Like I said, we're not going to be taking questions from y'all, but we are going to give you a chance to ask questions later at a reception. In the meantime, be respectful. Don't boo. Don't cheer. And hold your questions until you get a chance to ask the candidates yourself. So, with that said, let's get started. So, we're going to let the candidates introduce themselves with the opening questions, starting with Councilmember Robert Gallegos.
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, I want to thank Central Houston as well as the South Texas College of Law for hosting us this evening, and thank you to everyone for being here. I'm Councilmember Robert Gallegos. I've been representing District I for the last 10 years. Downtown Houston is in District I, so I've had the pleasure of representing downtown Houston for the past 10 years. 10 years ago when I took office, we started an initiative in downtown Houston in regards to the Downtown Living Initiative, where there was hardly that many residents living in downtown Houston. The initiative started to try to increase population to 2,500. It was successful. It went up to 5,000. Today we have 11,000 residents living in downtown Houston. Thank you to Central Houston as well as Houston First and everyone that has made it possible to have a beautiful downtown here in Houston. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Next, Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all thank South Texas, almost 100 years old, how proud we are of this institution. Thank you to Central Houston, Chris, for its ongoing leadership and the leadership that you give. And thank you to the moderator. Let me just quickly say that I have served this community both as a member of the Houston City Council and municipal judge, a member of the Houston Industrial Corporation Board that helped fund the Worthen. I've loved this city. I've invested in this city as a member of the United States Congress. I've been a city congressperson. In almost every crisis that the city has faced, I have helped City Hall to have a bridge out of it. I look forward to expanding the excitement of this great city for my family and other families and the young people, and to move this city forward with technology, economic development, resilience, and many other aspects of leadership that also deal with the running of the city. We will do so in excellence. I yield back.
Thank you. Gilbert Garcia.
Okay. My name is Gilbert Garcia. I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm a product of public schools. My first big break is I went to Yale University. It changed my life. My second big break, I worked on Wall Street, which got me in the financial services. I would have never been there otherwise. I then moved back to Houston in 1990. I started the money management business. My firm, I arrived in 2002. We had 200 million. We're now 22 billion, which essentially is about 3 or 4 times the size of the city's budget. I'm very used to big numbers. It's what I know how to do my whole life. I've served on 2 public pension boards, including the city of Houston and the city of Dallas. So again, I know numbers and I know them well. I was chairman of Metro, inherited a very difficult situation. We cleaned up all the lawsuits. We ended up paying down the debt. We ended up getting the full funding grant agreement, thank you, Congresswoman, to build light rail and expand it. We redid the whole bus network for the first time in 100 years. We got transparency awards. We did all those things, got Transit Agency of the Year for all North America in 2050. That's what I'll bring to the city of Houston.
Thank you. Lee Kaplan.
Thank you. I'm Lee Kaplan. I'm running for mayor because this is a great city, but it could be better.
We cannot afford to exclude anyone in that effort. This is an executive position, not a legislative one. And in my law firm, we have always stressed competence, accountability, and integrity. That's what the city deserves. So my plan is to attack and address major issues. First is crime. Second is picking up the garbage. Third is permitting so we can build affordable housing. And fourth is infrastructure. My experience in the private sector makes me qualified for this job. And I plan to make Houston a city that we can all be proud of. That's our mantra. We can't exclude anyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Whitmire.
Thank you, and thank you, Central Houston and South Texas Law. I'm John Whitmire, and I've spent my entire adult life in public service in the House and the Senate. I was approached 2 years ago by Houstonians would I consider coming back to Houston and running for mayor and dealing with issues that I've handled in Austin for at least 50 years. We've dealt with city issues, Houston issues in Austin. I've worked with 9 mayors, 7 governors, and I'm willing to use my experience and contacts on behalf of Houston. It's vital that we all unite and get behind downtown Houston. As downtown Houston goes, I truly know will be how Houston goes. Thank each and every one of you for being here. We must have a vibrant downtown Houston.
Thank you. And now, on to the questions. First, Houston and Harris County are both massive units of local government. And in many ways, they're intertwined. Do you see specific opportunities for greater collaboration between the two governments that could increase efficiency or improve Houstonians' quality of life? We'd like to start with you, Gilbert Garcia.
Thank you. First of all, yes, I do see an opportunity in regards to the county and the city working together. As a city council member representing District I, we've worked alongside with Precinct 2 of the Harris County, Adrian Garcia, in regards to Oates Road. Oates Road, for example, is in the northeast part of my district. It's a road that has been neglected for decades. When I ran for office, many of the business owners was asking me, what am I going to do with Oates Road if I get elected? So I kept my word. I reached out to Commissioner Adrian Garcia. He put in some money, city put in some money, and now the Oates Road has been renovated, and the business owners there are very happy. Also, in regards to working with Harris County Precinct 2, we were able to put sidewalks on Manchester Street. Manchester Street is a street that goes into Manchester, which is an economically disadvantaged fence line community in the East End next to Valero, and people have to walk on the street just to get to Broadway. So working with Commissioner Adrian Garcia, we were able to put sidewalks there at Manchester. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, did you mean that Gilbert Garcia or this Gilbert Garcia?
Oh, whoops.
Who's the original? That's okay.
Your turn. I messed that one up. So.
For me?
Yes.
Let's go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think, first of all, I'm just playing. First of all, I think the key is, I already think there's great progress between the city and the county. In fact, I think we're probably another question, when both the city and the county collaborated together and put in approximately $160 million to tackle that very difficult issue. And I think there would be more collaboration. If you look at my history, all you got to do is look at how I ran Metro. At Metro's, people said the county will never work with you. The multi-cities will never work with you. Well, I'll never leave the table, because at the end of the day, we all have one thing in mind, which is to make the region better. And I was able to reach across the aisle, and they ended up being some of my strongest allies at Metro. That's how I would serve at the city of Houston. That's how I would be mayor. I'll never leave the table, and I will work with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jackson Lee. Do you see opportunities for more cooperation between Houston and Harris County?
Absolutely. First of all, as a member of the United States Congress, and that is the long years of experience, but including city council and obviously serving as a judge, I see that layered government is extremely important. As a member of Congress, I have worked with state government. I've worked with all the presidents, Republicans and Democrats. And in the county, for example, there are opportunities to work on the dollars that are coming in for the infrastructure legislation that I helped craft, along with several of my colleagues. And there are solar projects that we can work on, infrastructure projects we can work on. Harris County Flood District works very well with the city when we have planned projects, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. Just a few years ago, I wrote legislation for the Army Corps of Engineers to work with the Harris County Flood District to ensure that we would have some consistency on how we plan to fund our respective bayous so that they would work. I've given money to most of the bayous here, including the Buffalo Bayou. We know that the city flooded extensively downtown Houston during Hurricane Harvey. Harris County Flood District can work on those issues, and it has worked on those issues. The mobile crisis unit that has been mentioned is also a very important part of the work that we do. Let me be very clear. I've served 28 years in the United States Congress. That should not in any way underestimate anyone's ability to be a CEO of a city. We do executive work in the Congress. I'm ready to lead, ready to serve, and I know how to collaborate with all levels of government.
Thank you. Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. I think everything we talk about this evening, we should partner with the county. I don't think with limited resources in 2023, we know the city's strained, Harris County's strained, we can no longer duplicate all the services for the constituents in which we share. I would approach the county, partner with them to collaborate better on parks, libraries. We don't need 2 animal shelters in our community. A city animal shelter, a county. Neither one particularly works well. I could go on and on where in 2023 we need to come together with the county. Number 2, we need to unite with the county officials and go to Austin with one voice for our community. We have very poor relationships with the city administration, with Austin, as well as the county. Harris County and Houston is being harmed by the lack of cooperation with Austin. Austin's not going to go away. I disagree with them on many of their positions, but when it comes to resources, the Land Commissioner's Office, Harvey recovery funding, we must unite and go to Austin and be willing to work with people that we disagree with. I have a record of doing that. It's a record of accomplishment, and I look forward to doing it on behalf of Houstonians.
Thank you. Next question. For more than a decade, the Texas Department of Transportation has worked on plans to expand I-45. Plans that, at their best, could literally reconnect neighborhoods, and at their worst, would require condemning properties and taking people's homes. How do you see the role of the mayor's office in regard to the I-45 expansion as a whole, and specifically as it affects downtown? What do you see as the essentials that would define the project's success? And first, we're going to go with Gilbert Garcia, and I'm putting my glasses on, so I looked at the right one.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. First of all, I think that ultimately this is a very important issue because I think first and foremost, we need the money. If we don't get the money when they do big projects like that, it'll go somewhere else. We need the money, we need the infrastructure, we need the jobs, we need to create capacity in the community. But I think the mayor needs to send a strong tone at the top. And the mayor needs to visit with every TxDOT commissioner and all the staff members to preserve and protect the communities as best as possible. I've done that as Metro. When I was Metro chairman, when people said the Metro chairman doesn't go to see TxDOT commissioners. When we were trying to receive additional funds for the Uptown Bus Rapid Transit, I went and saw every single commissioner. I went to see the staff. And I set a very strong tone at the top that we needed money out of TxDOT for transit. And I'm happy to say that we got $25 million for that bus rapid transit, the first time that TxDOT ever allocated money for transit to that point, and probably ever. So again, we need the capacity, we need the funds. If we don't use them, they'll go somewhere else. We need the jobs, we need the infrastructure. We've got to have a strong tone at the top to protect our neighborhoods and protect the community at the same time. That's what I would do as mayor of the city of Houston.
Thank you. Representative Jackson Lee.
It's extremely important to realize that we do not operate in a vacuum. One of the first things that I will do as the mayor is to use my keen skills at advocacy and collaboration to meet with the elements of government. We spoke about Harris County. meeting as we can with commissioners and county judge, meeting with TxDOT, meeting with the governor, meeting with the heads of the respective Senate, and of course the House. In doing that, we work to utilize my expertise deeply embedded in the federal government. And that is the very anchor that helped this project move. This project was not moving until I got engaged because of the unhappiness, if you will, disappointment of our neighborhoods, many of them in the Leonel Castillo Community Center area, in Independence Heights, and other areas. We got involved. There's a Title VI provision that you can't move if you're discriminating. We got involved. Both the county and the city were able to do MOUs for replacement of housing, for building of new housing, dealing with drainage, and we now have a working partnership. There is something relevant to knowing all levels of government, and that's how I will utilize the information and the long years of experience. This project is moving because the federal government, working with me, decided to engage TxDOT, Harris County, and the city of Houston.
Thank you.
And we are here where we are today. I look forward to that.
Across the country, cities are grappling with real and perceived issues related to crime. As mayor, what steps would you take to lower crime? And how can the business community support these efforts? What initiatives would you take to address the perception of crime in downtown? Starting with Robert Gallegos.
Well, again, for representing downtown Houston these past 10 years, downtown Houston is one of the safest places in the city of Houston. And we just need to make sure we put that out there to let people know that downtown Houston is a safe place. As a council member, about a year and a half after I took office, I had a law enforcement summit where we invited the Sheriff's Department, Metro, we invited Precinct 1, Councilmember Rosen's office, we invited HPD. We spoke and talked about how we can work together. Since we have limited resources, we need to make sure we work together. We can have, since we have two light rail lines here in downtown Houston, and then we also, well, actually three rail lines, the purple line, the green line, and the red line. And then you have HPD. You have Constable Rosen's office, which is one of the largest constable's offices in Harris County. If we can all work together in regards to our resources to make sure that we patrol downtown Houston. I used to be a detention officer for 2 years before I was a council member, and it always bothered me that inmates were being let go on the north part of downtown Houston with no money, nowhere to go, just to be let go out on the street. We should have the Sheriff's Department that's doing a lot better in regards to providing resources and patrolling the northern part of downtown Houston. That way, the Central Command here in downtown Houston can patrol the rest of downtown.
Thank you. Lee Kaplan, what are your thoughts on crime?
First of all, we cannot say that downtown is totally safe. In fact, crime is underreported here because people know it doesn't do any good. The Chronicle has incorrectly reported that crime is down by focusing on the change from the pandemic to the present. If you compare 2019 to 2022, you know that murders in the city are up and people don't feel safe. And so you can cite all the statistics you want, but the first issue is do people feel safe? We have half as many police officers per capita as Chicago and New York. You can't say we're twice as law-abiding. In addition, there was a study done for the mayor in 2017 and 18 that recommended civilianizing more of the police work. So we'd have more of the senior experienced officers out on the street, which would include downtown, and more civilians handling the interior jobs. That didn't go anywhere, perhaps because the mayor was negotiating over pension reform with the police at that time. But that's something that needs to happen. The first thing is to have more officers on the street. The second thing is to merge the HR departments across the city. We have 22 HR departments in 22 departments of the city. By merging them, there are positions that some people might not know to apply for, and they could be diverted to places where they're needed the most. Finally, I think it's necessary to recognize the problems at the Beacon and to deal with them.
Thank you. Gilbert Garcia.
Thank you. No doubt, people do not feel safe. They don't even feel safe going shopping anymore. I've had a friend that had her car stolen from the Galleria, just like that. At the end of the day, what do we need to do? First, we need to bring back more community policing. Because one of the things, if you look from the firefighter model, they have fire stations throughout the community. Why? Because they know the fastest way to get to a fire is to have fire stations throughout the city. It makes perfect sense. We need to bring back more community policing so people can get to crime much faster, our police officers. Second, it will also be a deterrent. Why? Because when you visibly see more police officers around, you feel safer. And then when some of the criminals see more police, they won't commit crime. At the end of the day, we know the visibility is a major deterrent. I would focus on lighting because I think that there's a lot of areas where poor lighting is conducive to greater crime. I think we need to think differently. One of the other things I would look at is there's a large number of police officers doing civilian work. We need to look at hiring more civilians to do that work so we can get police officers back doing policing. So I think there's a way to coordinate all the different police departments together to share information, to even look at where their routes are on policing, and I think it's something that it takes a strong tone at the top to get done. And that's what I would bring to the City of Houston.
Thank you. Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. As Chairman of Criminal Justice in the State Senate, I have a proven record of addressing crime. It's not only a perception, but it's reality. This afternoon, there's 900 individuals charged with murder or capital murder on the streets of Houston. Most on bond, many are fugitives. That's your repeat violent offenders, which we must come together to address. Collaboration with the 80-plus law enforcement agencies in Harris County. It's not only a safety issue, it's affecting our economy. The values in the Galleria area are going down due to the fear of crime. Mexican nationals that always came to the Galleria to purchase their goods are now going to San Antonio. The first goal of government, the first duty of government is to be honest with the public. You're not going to fix a problem unless you admit there is one. We have a crime issue in Houston. People come up to me in the Heights, seniors say we don't leave the house after 5. Young families will not go to the park in the evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not have to live like that if we come together, admit it's an issue, and address it. And I'm prepared and have a proven record.
Thank you. For decades, the City of Houston has used tax increment reinvestment zones for locally directed community and economic development. In downtown, for instance, the TIRZ, as it's called, has been used to build and maintain parks, rebuild streets and infrastructure, and make downtown a place where people live, not just work. But that tax money is not directly under city control, and some argue that it's not distributed fairly. How do you view the use of TIRZs across the City of Houston, and what changes, if any, would you push for as mayor? Could we start with Representative Jackson Lee, please?
Well, I think the TIRZ can be extremely effective. It's a concept of recent decades, and we've seen some of the improvements that the TIRZ has really impacted our city. You go to Hobby Airport, you'll see some of the work that the TIRZ has done. The TIRZ budget, expenditures, capital improvements are under the jurisdiction of the city. You use the TIRZ to the most effective way that you possibly can. Those dollars are city dollars. And as mayor, I would collaborate with the TIRZ all over the city. One particularly emotional event that I went to was a Vietnamese or Vietnam War memorial. But they do other things, particularly infrastructure, working with the Harris County Flood District, working with Public Works. So rather than look at the TIRZ as a nuisance or an obstruction, I would look at them as an asset and still have oversight, jurisdiction, and engagement so that what they do effectively helps all of you, the entire city, to ensure that we can work with those TIRZ dollars. I would encourage them, as they've done, to get community project funding from the federal government, direct funding from the federal government on infrastructure projects. I've given any number of TIRZ in my congressional district millions of dollars to deal with infrastructure projects that are in fact right here in the city, impacting the city. We've done this with Central Houston, the downtown management district, when we gave the green buses some years ago. We can work to make it effective and to build on its commitment to the city.
Thank you. Sorry. Councilmember Gallegos, what are your thoughts on TIRZs?
I support the TIRZ. I know that tomorrow at City Council we're actually voting on some policies in regards to the TIRZ as to when they can be terminated, when they can be formed, and their 30-year lifespan. I know that the Downtown Redevelopment Authority has done an outstanding job here in downtown Houston in regards to the recently opened Tribbley Park, which is not too far from here. They put money into that, and it's a beautiful park that was lacking green space on this side of downtown. They're doing tremendous work in regards to the reconstruction of Bagby Street. You know, before it was embarrassing when you had visitors coming to our city, and Bagby Street, which is right there between downtown and the annex, was in bad shape. The sidewalks were broken, and what have you. In regards to the Lynn Wyatt Performing Arts Park Plaza that's about to open soon, that's something else that the TIRZ has done here in downtown Houston. In regards to other parts of my district, the Gulfgate TIRZ, they were able to redo Park Place. That's the entrance to the new Botanic Garden. You know, so TIRZs have done a lot, especially with the revenue cap that the city of Houston has. We're limited in regards to where we can use these monies, but the TIRZ has stepped up, and they have done a tremendous job. So as the next mayor, I do support TIRZ and will continue supporting TIRZ.
Thank you. Lee Kaplan?
First of all, there has to be a time limit. I've been told that every mayor hates TIRZs until they have a chance to have one. Ditto for council members. And that's true. That's true in 5th Ward, which is what I was told by Tarsha Jackson. It's true in Uptown. So step one is have a 20-year limit, and for those TIRZs that are bumping up against them, give them 5 years grace period. But if you can't get things done in 20 years, then there shouldn't be a TIRZ. This is money that should be used by the whole city.
Thank you. Houston has been celebrated as a national model for addressing long-term homelessness, but people are still living on our streets and in our shelters, and they're still falling into homelessness across the city. If elected as mayor, what will you do to continue to reduce homelessness? Could we start with you, Representative Jackson Lee?
Well, we know the city has had an effective model, again, using federal dollars, and I am grateful for that. As a member of the Houston City Council, I worked extensively with the Coalition for the Homeless. There are a number of homeless organizations, but just as I have spent my congressional weeks here with almost 80 eviction cases that have come into my office, or dealing with a mother who is on the streets with 6 children, I know that homelessness continues. So there's several ways that we would look at it to be able to improve it. One, yes, working with the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development on developing more housing for the homeless. Have permanent choice vouchers rather than temporary, so that someone has one for a year. Have wraparound services. Look at this concept of tiny houses. Look at the inventory of what the city owns and whether or not there's land to help us build with private developers more affordable housing for individuals who want to get into housing. Wraparound services, I've said this second time because that is extremely important. The county has a project where they have homeless persons in for 1 year and they have wraparound services. Build up on the lack of mental health resources here in this community. Many of those who are homeless have mental health crises that they're dealing with. We have the worst mental health record in the nation. The state spends no money on it, and with a surplus, how sad that is. We have to do that.
Thank you.
Provide housing, provide support services, and get people off the streets and work with the veterans to get them off the streets as well.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Yes, the New York Times a year ago, they had a story in where they actually showed Houston as being a model city in regards to homelessness. Just a few weeks ago, you had the mayors of Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York here in Houston. Mayor Turner gave them a tour of the new navigation center there on Jensen. We did a ribbon cutting just a few months ago. That's the first of its kind in the state of Texas. Where it's temporary housing, but we provide wraparound services until we're able to find permanent housing for them. So as the next mayor, I want to continue providing and working with the Way Home, which is an organization that consists of over 100 organizations that do provide services for the homeless. I want to make sure that we continue working with them to provide the wraparound services and providing permanent housing. That's why we have been so successful here in the city of Houston. That's why you've had the mayors of New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago here in the city of Houston. Because again, we're battling and we're doing great in regards to finding permanent housing for the homeless. So as the next mayor, I want to continue to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Houston is a predominantly Democratic city in a predominantly Republican state, and that strain frequently shows. See, for instance, this legislative session's Death Star bill, which takes power away from local governments. Is it possible to work more smoothly with our state government? And if elected mayor, what would be your approach to seeing that Houstonians' interests are served in Austin? I'd like to start with you, Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. I have a proven record of working across the aisle because it works. In the Senate, there are 19 Republican senators, 12 Democrat. I can count. You can't get anything passed or done unless you work across the aisle. I'm in public service to get things done. I know for a fact that we are losing out on state resources because we do not have a good working relationship between City Hall and the courthouse currently. We cannot continue down that path. I do not politicize issues. I'm the only Democratic chair in the state Senate because I do not politicize or partisanize public safety. I just want results. It works. We will do it. If I become mayor, the city won't need a large number of lobbyists. If I'm elected mayor, we can save money on their lobby expenses, but more importantly, I can get results. The land commissioner, who we have to work with, was a colleague of mine in the Senate. I have very productive contacts, and I wish I could start using them in the morning. In fact, I've been using them most of my public service career. I've worked with 9 mayors, 7 governors, and we all spoke with one voice. I will continue to tell my colleagues in the Senate and in the governor's office, as Houston goes is how the state of Texas goes. We furnish about 1/4 of the revenue to the state. We need an urban initiative, and we'll get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lee Kaplan.
Look, the city cannot get that done until the private sector steps up and tells the governor and the other Republicans in the legislature to knock it off. It is a dream world to think we're going to get something out of them. We're missing $400 million in Harvey money. And despite all the promises and the comments about the current land commissioner, she has made it clear that she thinks the metrics for distributing that money elsewhere are good. My personal view is that only the private sector can tell Greg Abbott and our lieutenant governor and our attorney general, whoever that will be in a couple of months, to knock it off. We can't do this anymore. They're screwing us in every way, whether it's losing medical students to other states or losing money or initiatives, whether it's mental health or other things. So the mayor has to be somebody to work with the private sector. And I've represented people in the private sector for years, small businesses, as well as the Exxon Mobils and ConocoPhillips and BHPs and BPs and Marathons of the world. And those are the people who will make it happen or not. And any idea that suddenly the mayor, hat in hand, in some charismatic way is going to convince them to do different is not simply dreaming. It won't happen.
Thank you. Gilbert Garcia.
Sure. First, I would not approve a single new TIRZ until there's a complete review on TIRZs. Homeless has been a great success story for the city of Houston. As it relates to Austin, I don't know if I have any charisma or not, but one thing's for sure, I'm not going to give up. I am not going to give up. Austin is like our banker. That's the way the FTA was when we were working to get the full funding grant agreement. I recognize the role Austin plays. If I were successful as mayor, one of the first things I would do is go see the governor. You bet I want to repair relationships. And you know what? I'll be the first one to go because we need them more than they need us. I would go see the land commissioner right away. And ultimately, when you look at some of the problems that we've had in the housing department, no wonder they didn't feel comfortable allocating funds to us. We've got to do better. And we could continue to throw stones at them, or we can recognize that we have to work with them. I am a Democrat, so I say them. At the end of the day, we all want one thing, a good Texas, a strong Texas, and a great Houston. I have done that as Metro Chairman when I met with people that everyone said, they'll never work with you. Whether it's Congressman John Culberson, he'll never work with you. Whether it was Commissioner Steve Raddick, he'll never work with you. Whether it was the multi-city mayors. At the end of the day, I have to work with them. And I have to work with Austin if I were mayor. And that's what I'll do. I'll set a strong tone at the top. I'll never leave the table, and I won't give up, and I will have hope that it'll make it work. And you bet I want to get the private sector involved, and I'm going to use everything I got at my disposal. Thank you.
Cities across the country are facing high office vacancy rates in underperforming office towers and severe declines in commercial property values, resulting in decreased tax revenues. What plans do you have to address the challenges facing Houston's underperforming office properties? We'll start with you, Mr. Kaplan.
I don't have any plans for that. That's the private sector's problem. The city is not going to subsidize them anymore, and there is a tax rate. It may get lowered, but the truth is the city, downtown in particular, will recover at a slower rate than people want, but the idea that the city can fix that, once again, is fantastical. It's not going to happen. They are wise people. They're entrepreneurial. They'll use buildings as effectively as they can. More people will come back to work. But that's not something that the city has the resources to handle.
Thank you. Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. Well, we don't wait till I take office to go to work on that. We need to immediately work on quality of life issues in downtown Houston, working environment. Last session, working across the aisle. I could have never done it without the Republican colleagues' assistance. I fight them on their social issues, but when it comes to what's best for Houston, the city asked me to introduce Senate Bill 1057. It's going to transform downtown Houston starting in September. We will create an entertainment district 3 miles in every direction from George Brown, even to the Arts and Theaters District. George Brown will be expanded because we're going to cap the state sales tax in September, and any future growth will pour into Houston first. Literally billions of dollars in the next 30 years. The exciting thing is we're going to put 45 and 59 underground, and it will open green space. We'll do an east side entrance to George Brown, and it'll open up all of East Houston. What we have to do to attract people downtown, certainly the 45 expansion played a role in that. We could have not made it mobile, the mobility to downtown Houston. So let's unite. Let's don't play politics with it. It's easy to get votes by protesting TxDOT, but if we want results, we need leadership that knows how to get it done in a proven record. The Senate bill will create a downtown safe, want to live there, and certainly take care of our infrastructure in downtown. We'll create a retail center around George Brown. It's exciting, and I can't wait till they roll out the plans in September.
Thank you. Representative Jackson Lee.
Well, obviously, downtown is much larger than down by the George R. Brown Convention Center, which is a wonderful asset for this city. But when you look at downtown, you have to look at beyond that area into where the City of Houston City Hall is, going upwards as far as Midtown. Interestingly, the TIRZ, I'll just bring that up again, just helped develop the park that was across the street from South Texas, and the library that was on Griggs Road and Emancipation Park. So we know we have assets that we can utilize. But as it relates to vacant office space, which is, I believe, the question that you asked, we can do a number of things. One of the things I want to do with my economic development officer is begin to develop clusters in terms of how you draw in different industries to say that you can have a number of the same type industries around you. Office buildings can be those cluster sites. Technology comes to mind. Even though ION is further down Main Street, you can develop sort of synergism of those kinds of industries. Then there are federal grants, yes, and I'll say that over and over again, make them your partner, that can retrofit or redo with public-private partnerships some of these for housing. And so you have different ideas to do so and to make this a place that people want to live, people want to do business, and you think of ways to incentivize other areas besides the area that is around the George R. Brown. We have to do all of downtown as I have done in the past.
Thank you. In 2004, Houston voters imposed a municipal revenue cap. That cap is now forcing the city to make tough budgetary decisions, and it may affect the city's ability to provide dependable public services. What are your thoughts on the revenue cap? And what changes, if any, would you support taking back to voters? We'll start with you, Lee Kaplan.
Look, the rev cap exists, and pretending that the voters will agree to get rid of it once again is a fantasy. It's not going to happen. TIRZs have been a way to get around it for quite a while. But I think what we have to do is concentrate on the most important services. Those are public safety, picking up the garbage, permitting, and if we do better permitting, we'll have more affordable housing and more taxpayers to increase the tax base, and finally infrastructure. If we have a city where people feel safe and they enjoy living here, then more people will move here. That works a lot better than tax incentives where corporations promise to have more jobs here, which is completely unverifiable. We've got to make the city more livable, and that means concentrating on the most important things. Those four things: crime, picking up the garbage, permitting, and infrastructure. That's the only way we're going to make progress.
Thank you. Councilmember Gallegos?
Yes, in regards to the revenue cap, I know that when it went into effect in 2014, since 2014, the city has not collected $1.4 billion. As a district council member, we're constantly receiving calls in my office as well as the other 10 council district offices. People are just used to getting their trash picked up on a certain day. If their trash is being picked up on a Monday and it's not picked up on Tuesday, guess what? They're calling our office. And they're wanting to know why their trash wasn't picked up yesterday like it's always been picked up. We have trash trucks that are breaking down. We need more police officers on the street. We need better equipment. We need better technology for HPD. They've come and spoken to council about that. But we can't do this unless we have the revenue to do so. So as mayor, what I would do is work with the controller's office so we can try to educate the voters and let them know that $1.4 billion that was not collected since 2014, what we could have done with that money in regards to buying new trash trucks and putting more police officers on the streets. As the next mayor, I will work to try to educate the voter, so that way hopefully we can place it on the ballot and the voters will decide and go from there.
Thank you. At this point, oh, I'm sorry, Senator Whitmire. You have thoughts on this?
Well, thank you. First, before we go to the voters and citizens for additional revenue, we've got to gain their confidence that we're managing their money properly now. First thing I would do is audit all the departments, eliminate the waste. We must eliminate the conflicts of interest, which are increasing the cost of doing business. And then we have to have transparency. Chris Brown, our current controller, who will work with me in the mayor's office, has tried his entire period in office to have an online showing of where we spend our money, and it hasn't been accepted by the administration. You have to be honest with people, show them where their money's going. One of the first things I would present to the folks after we've gained their confidence, and it's going to take a few months to audit and gain the transparency we're looking for, is ask for an exception for public safety. Bill White did it. You would gain $100 million immediately for first responders. There's just some really good sound management tools that we could be using that we're currently not using.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we're going to move to questions for the entire table. And we'll start at this end with you, Mr. Gallegos, and move this way. A company's decision to invest in a city does not happen in a vacuum. Other opportunities in other cities are almost always considered. As mayor, what steps would you take to see that Houston welcomes investments and is attractive to them?
Well, as the next mayor, as a council member, for example, in regards to District I, we needed to improve District I because, in my opinion, District I had been neglected for decades. So as a council member, someone that was born and raised there, I focused on that in regards to bringing some new amenities into my district. So that way investors can come in, people can come in and move into District I. So we were successful with the first botanic garden in the city of Houston, which didn't cost the city $1. We worked with the Houston Botanic Garden Board. They're raising money to transform 160 acres of a former golf course, and they're putting money into it. They're in phase 1 of 4 phases, but it's a beautiful. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to go to the Botanic Garden. It's in District I, and I'm proud of that. We also have the Gus Wortham Golf Course, the oldest 18-hole golf course in the state of Texas. Again, the city didn't spend $1. We worked with the Houston Golf Association. They came in, they refurbished the old Gus Wortham Golf Course. So now that's bringing other entities and businesses into District I because we have amenities to offer. So as the next mayor, what I'd like to do is work with different organizations to work side and side along with the Harris County. So that way we can beautify and improve our city, and that way it encourages developers and others coming in from other parts of the country, even into the city of Houston, and to call Houston home.
Thank you. Representative Jackson Lee.
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that I add a few comments about safety and security, and I think it is important to have visibility. It is important to work with other law enforcement organizations to make sure that we do so. And I think it is important, in particular, as we work to improve what can happen in downtown Houston, is that we work with all of the county government, the state government. We work with the public-private partnership. One of the things that I think will add assets is knowing the inventory of what we have in the city. I plan to inventory all of what the city owns so that we can see the wealth that the city may have, that we can add to public-private partnerships. I think it is important to expand on what I talked about before, which is to try and bring in new investment from outside of the state into the city of Houston. I'd like to explain over and over again to the state that Houston is in fact an asset for the state. I don't know why we're detached. None of us are going to ignore the governor or state leaders. We all have that ability. There's no special talent because we can see we have a school takeover, so there's no special talent. I will be in the governor's office and extend a hand of friendship, as I've done to all the other governors that we work with, and we will get things done where Houston will be promoted. Houston will be a recipient of funds, and by the way, there's a $33 billion surplus in the state.
Thank you.
The governor should be utilizing it for its cities.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia.
Sure. First, we should all be concerned. The city of Houston, for the first time, is not growing at all. If you look, companies are moving from California right now, and they're not coming here. They're going to San Antonio, they're going to Austin, they're going to Dallas. And if you look at population growth, people who are moving to the region are not moving here. They're moving to Montgomery County, Brazoria County, all of those things. It is time that we recognize that we've got to get the fiscal house in order of the city to get back a thriving environment, to attract these companies and attract people back to the city. And if you look on the revenue cap, because all these things are intertwined, the revenue cap is something that people, I don't think, fully understand. It's not a revenue cap at all. It's just a property tax cap. That's all it is. And property taxes only represent about 30% of the entire revenue of the city. The rest has no increase at all. And if you go back to around 2006 or so, the population has grown about 10%, but yet the budget and the revenue of the city have grown 85%. And so there's a real disconnect. And so that is why I would not be in favor of changing that revenue cap until there's a complete overhaul of the entire operation of the city. And I have been calling for a long time, as you know, or most of you should know, for transparency. We put the check registry online at Metro back in 2010. And we've been calling for the city to do that ever since. And if you look, I've been calling for audits in the city since I first entered the mayor's race, especially housing and the health department. So it's all intertwined. We got to get our fiscal house in order.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kaplan.
Look, it is not true that the city is riddled with corruption. It's just not true. We don't spend that much money We have a larger citizenry than we used to, but on a per capita basis, they're not as wealthy as they were 20 years ago. We have to go back to making this a place where the word gets out, it's a good place to live. That's why I keep coming back to public safety, infrastructure, picking up the garbage, and permitting, making it easier. Somebody told me, a home builder, that he hates dealing with the county, but he will not deal with the city because he can't get a permit issued. It's not because people are corrupt, it's because they're not led and inspired. The mayor is the person you hire to hire department heads. If you go to the airport, you know it's a nightmare to go to Intercontinental and pick anybody up. It is. If you try to get a permit, it's a nightmare. If you try to get through to 311, it's a nightmare. Not because the workers are corrupt or stealing money, but because there's insufficient leadership. If there's anything I've learned as a lawyer for over 40 years and seeing a law firm that went from three people and a secretary, 3 lawyers and a secretary, to 50 people, it's you have to inspire people. You do things by example, by having good work habits, and by treating the work as worthy. The mayor has to set the tone.
Thank you. Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. We have a great city and great people, but you and I know the expectations from a great city are not being met by city government. Our infrastructure, our roads are in terrible shape. We boiled water for 2 days this spring. These are the type housekeeping issues that we must address. I know for a fact Amazon did not even have us on their list of 20 cities. We didn't even make the top 20 when they were looking for a regional site. We must deal with our infrastructure. We've got to go ahead and show what a great school U of H is, and TSU and Rice, and look for collaboration among across Houston. I could spend the rest of the day telling you how people call me to get into med center facilities. My colleagues from West Texas ship their cotton through our port. Everyone wants to work with Houston, but we do have housekeeping. We have infrastructure. We haven't even talked about flooding. I know for a fact some corporations in the energy corridor have said one more major flood and they're out of here. Major international companies can have their headquarters anywhere they want. So we have to come together, unite Houston, not play politics. Protesting's not going to work. We have to reach across the aisle and work and get Houston's share from every level of government. Partner with the county, and let's get it done. I wish I could go to work in the morning.
Thank you. All right. This will be our last question before the closing statement. Again, it will be for everyone at the table, and we're going to start with you, Gilbert Garcia. So, the city's current controller has warned of a coming fiscal cliff following the end of stimulus funds that have been used to balance the city's budget. As mayor, how would you address the structural deficit in a way that protects Houstonians' quality of life?
Well, there will have to be tough choices, and we all have to be prepared. No matter who wins here, we're going to have to be prepared because there's going to be a slowdown in the economy. It's coming. We have to reach an agreement with our firefighters. The voters spoke overwhelming for pay parity, and those aren't even in the numbers. I think it's been terrible practice, and I would have never voted for any of those budgets to use one-time stimulus monies to plug a budget deficit when by city ordinance they have to have a budget, a balanced budget. I wouldn't have voted for a single one, just on principle. So we've got to go back to the basics on financials. We've got to have clear transparency. We've got to look at the balance sheet. I'm sure there are assets that need to be written off. I'm sure we got to look at various revenue sources, but at the end of the day, we've got to recognize where we're going. And that is, we've got to tighten our belt. There will be tough choices. It's going to take someone that's an outsider, someone that's not part of the political class, that'll come in to make those tough choices. I don't have any business with the city. I derive no revenue. My firm derives no revenue from the city or any city entity, whether it's the port, whether it's Metro, whether it's anything else, HISD. I'm uniquely positioned to make those tough calls. I'm Gilbert Garcia, and I'm running for mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Kaplan.
Well, I've made the tough choices already. I've been talking to people for a year and a half, and that includes many council members, one of whom, when I asked about the fiscal cliff and what are we going to do about it, he said, Lee, why do you think I'm not running for mayor? And that's a reaction that I've gotten from other people without them saying it quite so concisely. Those are the four choices: public safety, picking up the garbage, infrastructure, and permitting. We have to do those things. Other things may have to go by the boards. And I don't think that there's any question but that the money's not coming. There's no more federal money than we've gotten in the past, and there's probably less. I don't think the state is going to help us out. We have to do that. And that just requires honesty. It's no different from making a budget, which I have done every year at my law firm for however many, 28 years. We just have to be careful about where we're going to spend the money. And when we spend the money, it's not enough to say, this is an investment in the future. That may be true, but some of those investments have got to be things that will bear fruit, because our luxury is run out. We don't have more Biden money, more ARPA money, more Inflation Reduction Act money, more generosity from the state. Somebody has to be businesslike about this. And it is really true that I'm not a member of the political class. I've not been on any municipal boards. I haven't been the chair of anything.
Thank you.
I just want to run things right.
Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. First of all, I will not kick the can down the road. It's been done way too long. We have to look at reality, be very transparent, very open and honest, surround ourselves with smart people, talk to people like Bill White and Chris Brown, people that have dealt with serious problems. I was at finance in 2011 at the state level when we had to make major cuts, make tough decisions. These are human life and death decisions that we have to make. So I know I can handle it. I'm not looking for a political career. I've had a distinguished career in Austin. I'm here for one reason, to make a difference, and I don't have time to waste. I will level with Houstonians if we've done everything we can. I, because of my seniority, have voted for more taxes in Austin than anyone. There's life after asking for more revenue if it's for the right reason. Public safety, education, our infrastructure, flood control. Let's bring Houston together. I'm not a divider. I don't raise my voice unless I just have to. Ladies and gentlemen, we all must join hands, unite, and fix. This is a great city. People have discovered it. They're coming here from around the world, but we must be prepared.
Thank you. Councilmember Gallegos.
Again, I've been in council for 10 years, chair of quality of life, vice chair of economic development, and former chair of regulation and neighborhood affairs. Again, I am running for mayor to tackle these tough issues that we have here in the city of Houston. And I know Comptroller Brown has stated, due to the revenue cap, the city is in trouble due to the fact that we're no longer going to have ARPA funding. So we're going to have to find this funding, and I'm hoping that we can educate the voter to let them know what we have not been able to do as a city due to the fact of the $1.4 billion that we have not collected since 2014. But if that does not pass, then we're going to have to figure out other ways to find revenue. For example, the solid waste department, their budget last year, a year ago, was $96 million. We raised it to $103 million this year. But the director says that they have to be at $130 million. Their trash trucks are breaking down on the road. That's why your trash is not being picked up. Their drivers are leaving to the private sector because the private sector is offering bonuses. So we are losing employees in the city of Houston to the private sector. We need to find a way to keep these employees and to improve our departments. And the only way we can do that is to figure out a way to find revenue. So as the next mayor, if the revenue cap is not removed by the voters, then therefore we're going to have to find revenue. I would like to see if the solid waste department can be an enterprise fund and use their budget for police department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Jackson Lee, what would you do about the fiscal cliff?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'm not going to lead from a point of pessimism. I'm out in the neighborhoods. The city is made up of neighborhoods. Downtown happens to be one of them. But the voters are out in the neighborhoods. They want to have someone who will speak for them and protest if necessary, have the ability to manage this government, but have the ability to be enthusiastic about who this city is. The story of this city has not been told. Want to know why Amazon went somewhere else? One, it was a combination of the state of Virginia that recognized that quality of life issues, transportation issues, work training issues were important. A mayor can be an education mayor and have the ability to make sure that we have the work training that is needed to bring more businesses in. That's how you help to build our economy and build more money into the coffers, along with a very astute team that I will put together that will look at the opportunities for increasing revenue. That revenue cap has to be looked at. You do go to your neighbors and talk about it, but not from a point of pessimism. You talk about what we can do with the city, how we can go into the future, how we can make the idea of city services from health department to sanitation department to permitting, which I'm going in and really reorganize and digitize, because that's what it needs, their backlog. I know these issues. And so the only way you have the city going with you is that you uplift them. You tell them what you're going to do for their children. You're going to tell them there'll be jobs here for their children. That's what I expect to happen under the leadership of Sheila Jackson Lee as mayor, in addition to a balanced budget.
Thank you. And now we come to our closing statements. We'll do them in the same order that we did the opening statements, starting with you, Councilmember Gallegos. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Again, thank you everyone for hosting this event tonight. Again, I'm Councilmember Gallegos. I've been on City Council for 10 years. I have the experience on day one to run the city as the mayor. As a district council member, I'm limited as to what I can do. We have a strong mayor form of government. I have to go to the mayor to try to get things done. And sometimes I have to fight with the mayor to get things done in my district. But as the council member that's been serving our district for the last 10 years, I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Like I mentioned with the Botanic Garden, city didn't spend $1. We have a beautiful green space. As a council member, we were able to either refurbish or acquire over 300 acres of green space in District I. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what other things we have been able to do in regards to the chair of quality of life. So that's why I am running for mayor, because I have the experience and I will get things done starting on day one. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jackson Lee.
Thank you so very much, and thank you so very much for doing such an excellent job. Let me also thank my colleagues. Everyone here has put themselves forward because they want to serve you. We all have a different approach, and I have an approach that will be successful. Let me also just give you a fact that the fund balances that we're going to be dealing with, the 2024 budget going in is already done, so we'll begin to do the 2025 budget, and the fund balances are larger than they've ever been, so we'll be able to go into 2025. It's going to be 2026 when it's tough. If a mayor hasn't gotten themselves together by that time and looked for alternative revenue, then that's not the best direction. I will have that done when we get a tough budget in 2026. But I'll also be dealing with issues of resilience, flooding. I'll be dealing with housing, workforce training. I'll be dealing with ensuring that we are out front for bringing new businesses here. Amazon didn't come here because we didn't provide them with quality of life issues. $900 million you got in this city because of Sheila Jackson Lee. Plain and simple. I fought for a decade to get that metro money, and I'll be able to fight again. Let's go into the future with enthusiasm, excitement, and yes, a smile on our face. We will get the job done.
Mr. Garcia.
Thank you. Well, if I raise my voice, it's only because I love this city. And I am passionate about this city. And I'm going to raise my voice, and I'm going to raise it loud. And so my name is Gilbert Garcia. You can go to my website. You can see my pledge for Houston. If you want to know what I stand for, it's all there. GarciaForHouston.com. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying there's corruption or not. I know one thing. The housing department was raided by the authorities. The health department was raided by the authorities. That is not normal. I know another thing. I've done big procurements. The airport procurement was done 4 times. That is not normal. I don't know the ins and outs, but I know one thing. The mayor owes it to the citizens to look at those things, to audit those departments, to ensure that there's no leakage. There's no leakage of monies, because those are the monies that need to go to the taxpayers. And so ultimately my goal of Houston is to make Houston one of the great cities of the world, to be in the same breath. When you think about, I don't want to be better than San Antonio. I want to be much better than that. I want to be New York, London, Paris, Houston, Tokyo. That's what I want.
Thank you. Mr. Kaplan.
Well, one thing I learned as a trial lawyer over 40-some-odd years is pick some things that really matter, start with them, end with them. One way that I've been successful is listening to young people and they have helped me focus on what really matters. That's why I've talked from the beginning tonight about the 4 biggest issues. They all relate to how we live in Houston, whether we like it here. I grew up here. I went to the public schools here. I excelled. I got a partial scholarship to Princeton and did well. I was an Eagle Scout. I sold peanuts at the Dome, and I was pretty successful at it. And finally, I've been a lawyer at a big firm where I made partner in a small firm. And in all those places, I've always focused on what mattered the most, and I've taken the words of my dad to heart, which is, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. That's exactly what I intend to do as mayor. I'm not going to figure it out later. I have thought deeply about it.
Thank you. Senator Whitmire.
Thank you. I've spent my entire adult life in public service. 10 years in the House, now 40 in the Senate. I prepared my entire life for this challenge, working with 9 mayors, 7 governors, looking at their best practices. I know for a fact that I had a good session. We created the entertainment district, which will do great transformation of downtown. We moved murder cases to the front of the backlog, which will make Houston safer. And yes, we passed legislation to make the city sit down with our firefighters. I can get things done. We don't have time to waste in Houston. People are watching our future decision making. We want people to quit moving to the suburbs. They work in Houston, but they go back to Cadian, Pearland, Cypress, the Woodlands. We want people to work, and we want them to live in Houston. We can do that. I wish I could go to work in the morning. I'll need your help, obviously, to be elected. But also, I hope we can have a session like this after I'm mayor, and then get as much input from you as possible. Thank you to Central Houston. As downtown goes is how Houston's going to go.
Thank you.
I truly believe that. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you all. This has been great.
I appreciate your candor.
All right, just a couple more items. Would like to thank our moderator, Lisa Gray. A round of applause for Lisa. Would also like to personally thank all of our candidates, not just for agreeing to do this tonight and putting yourself out there like this, but for stepping out there and stepping up for the city of Houston. You all had wonderful things to say, and we look forward to working with all of you in some capacity and wish you all well in the election. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Just a few more notes, because this is the important stuff, because I'm going to try to get you to the reception in an efficient fashion. Before we leave, though, I want to make sure that I recognize my staff that helped to produce this event. A couple of names. Ann Taylor, Aljanita Scott Davis, and Candace Williams is out here somewhere. Candace, thank you all for really just working so tirelessly to help to produce this event. We do have a reception after this. We'd love for you all to continue the conversation with your peers. We'll have many of our candidates who will be in attendance, so you can have one-on-one conversations with them. And so we're just going to egress out of this auditorium. We do have guides. We have signs and folks that are going to be able to guide you to the reception place. If you can take the stairs, please do so. It will help everybody else get there in efficient fashion. So we do want to exit out this way. So again, thank you all for being here tonight.